Okay. Well, I really am so excited. I've been excited all day to welcome everyone to our call tonight. We have an amazing speaker who's going to share her heart. And I first met Kelly a few weeks ago when she came to Knoxville. And honestly, her story was so compelling. It was so genuinely delivered that my team just was blown away. And they called me the next morning and they were like, Paula, we've got to get Kelly. We've got to get Kelly. We have so many people that can be, so impacted by her story. Do you think she would agree to do a call with us? And she graciously said yes. So tonight, I would like to introduce Kelly Davidson. She founded Blaze International. It's a global mentoring leadership program, which I'll let her explain. But she's got so much wisdom, so much experience, and a story that's phenomenal. So I don't want to belabor this anymore. I want to turn it over to Kelly. I hope she's there.
Fantastic. Can you hear me? Am I unmuted?
You are.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you, ladies. As I look at the screen, besides thinking about the Brady Bunch, because I always think about that with all these faces, I think about how many incredible stories are out there. And everyone, there's so many, and many of them on the screen may be even more inspiring and exciting than mine, but I get to share mine tonight, and I'm thrilled by that. Thank you, Paula, and your team. Y'all are so sweet to ask me to do this, and it's truly an honor. One, because I love sharing my story, and I'm so grateful to be here to be able to share my story. I see you waving, Lynn. Wow. So I will tell you about Blaze. I will tell you about Blaze International, but I kind of want to put that at the end of my story. What I want to do is kind of start from earlier in my life. When I was away at university, I made the most important decision I've ever made in my life, and that was when I started studying the life of Jesus Christ, and I realized who he is, and surrendered my life to him and began to follow him. And I say that because it changes everything about the rest of my life, and it impacts everything about the rest of my life. I got a teaching degree. I went to back to my hometown, which I promised I would never do. I don't know if y'all did that, but when I graduated college, I was like going anywhere in the world but my hometown. Ended up coming back to my hometown because some things were going on with my family. I taught school for a few years, and mostly fourth grade, third, fourth, and fifth grade, but fourth grade was my jam. I loved teaching. I felt like I had found my calling. I loved the students. I loved what I did, but what came with that were summers. So I had summers that I got to go and serve. And as a result of 2 summers away, abroad, an opportunity opened up for me to go overseas for what I thought would be 1 year. So I took that opportunity, and that 1 year turned into 2 years, and that turned into an invitation to come over full time. Now, I didn't know, I really struggled with that decision for a lot of reasons, but mostly because I thought, is this how missionaries are made? I thought you had a dream or a vision in 8th grade about a people group. So long story short, and it's such a beautiful story, how God led me over there. I got to go, and I got to teach and use a lot of the skills that he had invested in me up to that point in my life. So I was 24 years old, left for the field. I was 26 years old. I left for the field, and I moved to Central Europe, a place in Hungary called Toalmash, Hungary. It's a tiny village, and we used to say it's not the end of the world, but you can see it from here. So it was really like walking back in time, about 40 or 50 years for us. And like literally, my neighbors would have plows and plow their garden with a donkey and an old plow, and it was just an amazing time in my life. Y'all, I stayed there on that field and served for 10 years of my life. I had no idea at the beginning I would be there that long, but I went through all those things in your life when you're living in that way, where I really, those questions of, wow, might I marry a Hungarian or have children here and be so far away from my family in the West? Or might I never get married at all? What is God calling me to do? What am I supposed to be here? And am I supposed to be here forever. And I'd kind of passed through all of those things in my life there during those 10 years. But in the ninth year, about halfway through the ninth year, I started getting sick, and I had built a home. Just to give you an idea, I had built a home in this village. We had a 2-year Bible Institute there. I traveled all over Europe. I taught. I loved my life there. I loved my life. And I really, literally thought I would be there for the rest of my life. I built a home there. I settled. I planted roots. I was there. But in year 9, I started getting sick. And I kept thinking, if any of you have dealt with chronic illness or serious illness, you'll know what I mean by this. But I noticed it, but I just kept thinking, I need a nap, or I need a break. I need a vacation. We work a lot of hours. We have a demanding job here. We help a lot of people with great needs. So that's all. Came back to the States at the time about every 2 years. So it wasn't that often. And I just thought, well, I'm just due. I'm just ready for a break. And I just kept pushing myself and going. I would take breaks, but I just kept going and kept going. This went on for about a year, a little over a year. And finally, the director and his wife, who were dear friends of mine, approached me and said, hey, Kelly, we think you're sicker than you realize. And we think you need to go back to the States and take a medical furlough. Just take 6 months, go back, see your family, go to doctors. And I remember thinking, I don't think I'm that bad, but they probably know better. Now, again, if you've experienced a serious illness, you'll know what I mean. I knew that I was sick, and I knew I was getting sicker, but I didn't realize how serious it had become. I had lost a lot of weight at this point. I couldn't stop losing weight. I had several things going on at one time. I was passing out a lot. I had a lot of sinus bleeds or nose bleeds that had to be stopped by having my sinuses packed. I had viruses. I had fevers. I was just constantly sick. And it had gotten to the point where I literally wouldn't recover from one thing before catching another thing. So I knew something was wrong. But again, I'm just thinking, I'll be fine. I'll go home. I'll have a break. I'll be fine. And so I came back to the States for that medical furlough. And actually, when I got off the plane and I saw the image of myself in my family's eyes looking back at me, I realized, oh, okay, I might be worse than I think I am. Because they knew me, and I saw that in their eyes. I saw the compassion and the concern and the tears in their eyes. And I knew I was really sick. That began a process, and in the 6-month period of time that I was supposed to take off turned into a year, almost a year and a half of just searching for answers. I went to doctor after doctor after. Now remember, I had lived for 10 years in Europe in a tiny village. I had drank unpasteurized milk. I'd had meat. So they had to start way back here with testing to find out what could be going on in my body. In the course of this time, I was sent from Atlanta up to the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota on 3 different occasions. And on the 3rd time up there, they were still looking for what exactly was wrong. But they began to see numbers, my IgG and IgE levels of my immunity that were extremely low. So they began to pinpoint, okay, this is where the problem is. They discovered there that I had B-cell lymphoma, and they actually diagnosed me at Mayo Clinic with B-cell lymphoma, which is a rare cancer that destroys your healthy immunity cells, which is made in your bone marrow. And so they said, you have cancer in your body that is killing your immunity cells. Sent me back to Atlanta to Emory University to an immunity specialist and said, we want you to follow up this specialist and we'll start treatments. So about 4 or 5 weeks later, I was at Emory, followed a series of tests, and they had gone in my bone marrow, in my hip for my bone marrow, to find out what stage the cancer was in and how to approach it, what treatments, and that's actually where they uncovered the problem. Now, this is well into the series of events that led me to this point, but I had lost my immune system. When they went into my bone marrow, they didn't find cancer cells, so I did not have B-cell lymphoma. But I also did not have a healthy level of cells at all. All of my cell levels, your B cells, your NK cells, your T cells, your healthy immune cells that are made in your bone marrow, all of mine were completely wiped away. the best way I can explain it is they said, Kelly, your body looks like a cancer patient's body after about a year of intensive chemotherapy. Because you know that the chemotherapy attacks the cancer cells, but it also attacks the healthy immunity cells. But the difference is I hadn't been exposed to chemotherapy. I hadn't been taking that. So they deduced that I had been exposed while overseas to a toxin, and it ended up being Strachiobotrys, which is a black mold in a little village home that I lived in for about 4.5 years. It was called a potastase in an old, mud home, which is very normal for our village. And I even knew the mold was there, y'all. I just would clean it and keep going and think, oh, it's just part of being a missionary. It's part of living in a village and in a home that's about 110 years old. But I didn't know the danger it was causing. And so after those years of living there and breathing that, it slowly broke my body down. Now, y'all, at that point in Atlanta, after all this time at Mayo, the doctors were so compassionate and looked at me and literally did not know what to do with me at that point, because there was no terminal disease to fight. And until that point, that had been a year and a half overseas and almost a year and a half now back in the States of just treating symptoms. And now I had complications from the way they had been treating all of my illnesses. So now I was on medication, not only for overcoming the illnesses that I had, but now I had other things, side effects that I had, acid reflux and all these things for all the medication that I had been on. And the doctors looked at me and said, Kelly, we've done immunofusions. We've done almost everything we can think to do without putting you in a position that would expose you to something you might not survive. So it's best if you just go home, do what you can to get well and stay away from hospitals, stay away from young children if you can, because there's a higher level of germ. I always joke that my nieces were really young at the time. I had lived overseas for 10 years. Y'all, I wasn't going to stay away from them. There was no way. But I got sick every time I was around them. God makes them cute because they're germ carriers, but they're precious. They're precious. We love them all the same. Anyway, I literally did that. I literally went home. I'd done all the treatment I could, and I had medication, and I just thought, I looked at all the deficiencies and began to take all of the supplements and the minerals that it required. And I thought, I can do this. I've always been athletic. I'm 36 years old. I got to get my health back. How do I get my health back? Now, I had prayed and I had sought God, and I really believe He is the ultimate healer. And I know He was hearing me. I learned so many things during that time, but I remember a passage that He helped me understand during that time was from Psalm 103. And where He talks about He removes the burden of our sin, and He heals all of our diseases. And I remember reading that and getting such hope and inspiration, and that just washing over me. But I honestly didn't know if He meant here on earth or that He would literally take me to heaven, and that's where I would experience healing. I didn't know that would happen on earth, but I hoped for it, and I asked for it, and I did everything I could. So I went home, and I joke about how, one of those huge grandparent pack of pills, the pill boxes, not just the breakfast, lunch, dinner, but the in between 2 or 3. I mean, it was full. It was full of all of the things that I was lacking in. And I would take those supplements, and I spent that whole year, 8 months to 10 months of just taking that and trying to get well and doing everything I could. My levels from the time I got sick, from the time I actually came back to the States, my levels had nominally come up, but they were still all sorely below level. And I lived like an old lady. I had to sleep about 14 or 16 hours a day. I would get up and do something and get so exhausted I have to lay back down. I could only work 10 hours at the time weekly. So here I was in this mountain of debt financially and medical debt on top of everything else. And I'd been a missionary. I hadn't made a lot of money. I came back to the States and I wasn't even able to work full time yet. And I was just fighting for my health and hoping and praying for the best. And I was able to work in ministry, but it was only 10 hours a week. It was a very little time at that point in time. During about month 8 of that journey, that year of trying all that I could, almost as a side note, my doctor at Emory, she was head of rheumatology at the time, head of immunology department over there at Emory Hospital in Atlanta, said to me, literally almost as a side note, have you ever heard of something called Juice Plus? Because she saw my granny pack. She knew what I was doing, how hard I was working and trying to get well. And I remember telling her, I have heard of that. And I remember when we were overseas, my roommate and I, she was Hungarian. We had an American team come through, and there was a really sweet lady who left this red bottle and this green bottle and said, hey, this is fruit and vegetables. This is good for you. I want to leave these with you guys. Well, we took them and we're like, great. It makes us healthy. Great. We took them, and when they were gone, they were gone. We didn't really look into it. I didn't really understand what was in that, what were in those capsules that she left. But I remember that when my doctor had mentioned that. And so I looked into it. I started doing research, and I could not believe what I was reading online. And especially the studies and the research that had been done to strengthen your immunity. Y'all remember, financially, I was stuck. I was literally I was living in a borrowed apartment near the church where I worked at the time, just so that when I was sick, I could still get those 10 hours a weekend. I mean, I was in a really hard place, financially, physically. I'd gotten discouraged. Even though I was a little bit better, I wasn't well. And it was so hard to live that long as a sick person, and where have well days, but I was a sick person. And I remember Jeremiah 33:3 was also a passage that God had really used in my life. And he said, call to me. That verse says, call to me and I will teach you great and unsearchable things that you do not already know. That is now the verse that our ministry at Blaze International is built upon. And that was just an amazing, around that same time, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the risk and I'm going to do it. Now, to financially work it out so I could try Juice Plus and just see if it would make a difference, I had to literally stop taking everything else because I didn't have the money. I didn't have extra money. Everything I was spending on all the supplements and minerals I took, and I used that for that $50 a month Juice Plus. I began taking it, and I remember as I started taking it, I noticed, I didn't notice a lot at first, but a month went by, 2 months went by, 3 months went by, and I started feeling more like a well person that just got sick sometimes. And I thought, okay, I didn't want to say anything out loud. I was almost afraid to, because it had been such a long journey. And I thought, okay, well, I think I'm better, but I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let's just keep, I stuck to it. I stuck with it. At that point in time, a year and a half I'd been overseas. I'd been sick during that year, came back in the year and a half so this is year 3 to 4 was when I tried infusions and everything else. This is the beginning of year 4 when I started taking Juice Plus. And I see my dear friend's face on here, Lynn Wolford, and she actually came with me. Now, at the time, I had blood tests every 3 months. So at first it was every month, then it went to 3 months. I skipped the blood test. I just thought, I'm feeling better. I haven't seen my doctor in a little while. I think I'll just wait. I waited after 6 months. I waited after 8 months. My doctor called me at month 9 and said, Kelly, we really need you back at Emory. We need you to have the test done. But we want to add an immunology test to that. Can you go to Duke University Medical Center? It would be a month later. It's 1 month to the day when I'd had the blood work done before. And I said, okay, I can do that. Now, my friend went with me up there because my trips to Mayo were exhausting. And it usually entailed about 3 to 5 days of just test and blood work. And it was really hard emotionally, physically. And so she said, I'm going with you this time and I'll help you. I'll drive you back. We get there to Duke University Medical Center. She drops me off and I said, this is going to be a long day. Just drop me off and we'll meet up later. And so I go into my first appointment. We had several appointments that morning. I took a lunch break and I went back to see where he was going to refer me for my next visit. And y'all, that doctor looked at me and he said, you're done. And I said, what do you mean I'm done? He said, Kelly, your levels are back to normal. And I couldn't believe what I heard. 5 years later, 5 years from the time I started getting sick until that point, and I just couldn't believe it. Now, honestly, I remember calling my friend Lynn and I said, Lynn, I'm done. What do you mean you're done? I said, I'm done. Now, honestly, Dwayne, I'm so sorry if you're hearing this. We didn't call Dwayne till the next day. We didn't call her husband until the next day because we went out and celebrated that. We were so excited. And then, but we did, I couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe I knew I'd gotten better, but I was so afraid to trust it. The only thing I'd done different that year, and I went back to that doctor at Emory and I said, what was the difference? I was taking all of the things I was deficient in. How could this be so different? And she said, your body clearly just wasn't absorbing all of the supplements you were taking. Kelly, it's getting that, but it's getting it from a nutritional source. And that's when I realized I will eat Juice Plus for the rest of my life. And I want everyone I know and I love to know about it. And so that started another mission on the side of the ministry that I got to enjoy, that I've enjoyed to this day. And that's just telling people it's just such an easy way to get nutritional health in your life. One of the things I experienced through this was, and I know that Harriet has said this many times, we don't have a health management system in this nation. We really don't. We have a disease care, a disease management. It's not really healthcare. It's a disease management system. We're an overfed culture. When I travel the world and speak and I see we're an overfed culture, but we're undernourished. And the information is there. We've just got to deliver it. We've got to help people understand you've got a whole lot more control over your life and your future and your energy and your vitality. Live well. Live well. This is such an easy, simple way to have your health, to keep your health, and to live well and enjoy your life. And y'all, I clearly was back working full time after that, and I've enjoyed it so much, working at a mega church until literally today was my last day doing that. And I started a nonprofit called Blaze International, where I get to spend my life now. Not only now, for 4 years, I was restricted. I couldn't travel overseas. I could only stay in the States because of my immunity. I get to travel the world again, and I get to lead a nonprofit that helps missionaries right where they are get and stay healthy, with a biblical counseling degree that I got a few years ago, and help them stay where they are and help them minister where they are. I get to devote my life to that and helping people get healthy through Juice Plus every day of my life. And I can't even tell you how excited and how thrilled I am to be able, that's my story, and that is what I get to do every single day. So as I look out there on your faces, if this is a new story for you, I hope it encourages you. I hope it inspires you to realize that, this really is a gift. It really, it's an investment that is so worth it, because you're worth it. Our lives, our day, our time is so short, and it's worth it to live well and to be healthy and to be strong.
Well, thank you so much. I know everybody that was on here was kind of traveling, that road with you in Hungary. And I have visited Hungary. It's been 30 years ago. So I do know like what you were seeing, because I felt exactly the same. I have friends that are there. And that's one of the other things that we connected on, Kelly and I, is our Hungarian friends. But we're so excited because we really know why Juice Plus was so powerful in your body and enabled it to use the fruits, the vegetables, and the berries to heal itself. And Juice Plus does have immune studies. We have 5 immune studies about how Juice Plus helps your body build itself back and use the fruits and vegetables and berries to do that. So that's so encouraging, Kelly. I so appreciate this. I know my team does, and I know that they're going to be sharing your story with all the people they love and care about. So if anybody invited you onto this call, please get back with them, ask more questions. I guess our goal tonight was to share hope about health and hope about a future, because I think a lot of people get into your situation and they've dealt with an illness for a long time, and you can lose hope. But there is hope, and Jesus does bring us amazing gifts. And I consider it a big gift in my life, and you're a gift. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining in tonight, and God bless everybody. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
How do I stop the recording? Hold on.
Yeah, this would be.
No, it's recording again.